Shadows of an old house prolix somewhere on the edge of a deep forest, away from the noise of cities and human eyes, stood an old house. Its walls, once white, were now blackened by time and dampness. The windows, like empty eye sockets, looked nowhere. The locals avoided the place, whispering horror stories to each other. They said the house was cursed. They said it was haunted by something dark that would not let go of those who dared to enter. But one day, on a cold fall evening, a light came on in the house. Chapter 1. New tenants, a young couple, Anna and Maxim, moved into an old house, having bought it for next to nothing. They were looking for privacy, a place where they could start a new life. Anna, an artist, dreamed of silence and inspiration, and Maxim, a writer, hoped to finally finish his novel. They knew the house was old, but didn't pay much attention to the rumors, just scary stories for children. They laughed. The first evening passed quietly. They arranged the furniture, lit the fireplace, and went to bed. Tired but satisfied. In the night, however, Anna awoke to a strange sound. It was a light tapping, as if someone was tapping gently on the glass. She went to the window, but there was only darkness behind it. "Max, did you hear that?" she asked. "It's just the wind," he muttered, turning on his side. Sleep, but Anna couldn't sleep. She felt as if someone was watching her. Chapter 2. First signs. The next morning, Anna decided to inspect the house. She went down into the basement, which was damp and smelled musty. In the corner, she noticed an old box covered with dust. Inside were pictures, letters, and a diary. Anna began to read. The diary belonged to the previous owner of the house, a woman named Elena. She wrote about strange events, footsteps in the night, shadows that moved on their own, voices that whispered her name. The last entry was particularly disturbing. "It's here. It wants to come in. I can't go on." Anna felt a cold sweat on her back. She wanted to tell Maxim, but decided that it was just someone's joke. In the evening, however, the strange sounds repeated themselves. This time it was a whisper coming from an empty room on the second floor. "Max, are you sure you can't hear anything?" Anna asked, trembling. "No," he answered, but his voice sounded uncertain. Chapter 3. Shadows come to life. Every day the strangeness intensified. Objects began to disappear and reappear in the most unexpected places. Anna found her brushes scattered on the floor, though she remembered exactly that she had put them in the closet. Maxim heard someone walking in the corridor, but when he went out he found no one. One night Anna woke up to someone touching her shoulder. She opened her eyes and saw a shadow standing by the bed. The shadow was thick, almost palpable, and Anna felt a chilling terror overwhelm her. She screamed, and the shadow disappeared. Maxim, waking up, tried to calm her down, but he was scared himself. They decided that they needed to figure out what was going on. Chapter 4. Elena's Secret. Anna continued reading Elena's diary. She learned that the woman had tried to contact the spirit of her dead husband using spiristic seances. But something had gone wrong. Instead of her husband, she summoned something else, a dark entity that began to haunt her. The last entry in the diary was unfinished. "It's here. It wants to come in. I can't go on." Anna realized that they were facing the same thing. She told everything to Maxim, and they decided to seek help from the local priest. Chapter 5. Purification. The priest, Father Nicholas, agreed to help. He came to the house with prayers and holy water, but as soon as he began the ritual, the wind picked up in the house. Even though the windows were closed, the shadows began to thicken, and a loud banging sound came out of nowhere. "It's not just a spirit," Father Nicholas said, turning pale. "It's something more than that. It doesn't want to leave." He continued his prayers. But suddenly his voice broke. He fell to the floor, holding his throat as if someone was choking him. Anna and Maxim watched in horror as the shadow wrapped itself around the priest. Go away, he wheezed. It's too strong. Chapter 6. Last hope. Anna and Maxim realized that they were alone. They decided to perform their own ritual to exorcise the entity. Using the notes from Elena's diary, they tried to contact her husband's spirit, hoping that he would help, but something went wrong. Instead of Elena's husband, they summoned the entity itself. Shadows filled the room, and Anna felt her mind begin to sink into darkness. She heard a voice whispering her name, calling her. "Anna, come here," the voice said. "We'll be together." Maxim, seeing that Anna was losing consciousness, grabbed her and dragged her out of the room. They ran out of the house without looking back. The house was left standing in the forest, empty and silent. Anna and Maxim never went back there again. They sold the house for nothing, but warned the new owners about what was going on there. Those, in turn, didn't stay long either. They say that footsteps and whispers can still be heard in the house. They say the shadows still roam the rooms, waiting for more victims. And if you're ever in those parts, don't go near the old house, because it's never empty. Chapter 7. New victims. Several months had passed since Anna and Maxim had left the old house. They tried to forget what had happened, but nightmares and anxiety kept them going. One morning, Anna saw on the news that there had been a fire in the house. The new owners, a young family with 2 children, had barely escaped. They talked about strange phenomena, how the furniture moved by itself, how they heard children crying, even though there were no children in the house. Anna felt she could not stay away. She contacted the family and offered her help. Maxim, although he was against it, agreed to support her. Chapter 8. The return. When they arrived at the house, they saw that it looked even more gloomy than before. The walls were charred, the windows broken, but a strange sense of presence still hung in the air. New family. They greeted Anna and Maxim with relief. Olga, her husband Igor, and their children. "We don't know what to do," Olga said, trembling. "This place, it seems alive." Anna and Maxim decided to stay the night to figure out what was going on. They camped out in the living room, but sleep did not come. At midnight they heard the same sounds: footsteps, whispering, knocking. But this time something was different. The whispering grew louder, and Anna could make out the words, "Come back, you belong to us." Chapter 9. The curse. The next morning, Anna and Maxim began to explore the house more thoroughly. In the basement they found a hidden room they had not noticed before. Inside there were strange symbols painted on the walls and an altar with a black candle. On the altar was a book covered in dust. Anna opened it and began to read. The book turned out to be an ancient grimoire containing spells and rituals. She realized that Elena, the previous mistress of the house, had not just tried to contact her husband's spirit. She had summoned something far more ancient and sinister, an entity that fed on fear and despair. "It's a curse," Anna whispered. "It's been here since the beginning." Maxim, reading along with her, found an entry on how to banish the entity. But to do so, they had to perform a dangerous ritual that could cost them their lives. Chapter 10. Ritual. Anna and Maxim decided to take a risk. They gathered the necessary items: candles, salt, sacred water, and a knife. The ritual had to be performed at midnight, when the boundary between the worlds was thinnest. When the clock struck 12, they began. Anna read the spells from the book, and Maxim drew protective symbols around them. Suddenly, a wind picked up in the room, and the shadows began to thicken. An entity appeared before them, huge, dark, with burning red eyes. "You can't banish me," she hissed. "I'm part of this place." But Anna did not give up. She continued to recite the spells, though her voice trembled. Maxim threw salt toward the entity, and it backed away, howling in pain. At the last moment, Anna spoke the final words: "Go back to where you came from. You don't belong in this world." The entity screamed and began to dissolve. But before it disappeared, it whispered, "This is not the end." Chapter 11 Consequences. The house became quiet. Anna and Maxim, exhausted but alive, went outside. They thought it was over, but soon realized it wasn't. The entity had left a part of itself in them. Anna began to see shadows that followed her, and Maxim heard a voice whispering terrible things to him. They realized that the curse had not been broken completely. The entity was still with them, and now they had to find a way to get rid of it for good. Chapter 12 A New Way. Anna and Maxim decided to go on a journey to find a way to destroy the entity. They visited old libraries, talked to exorcists and occultists. Gradually, they learned more and more about the nature of the entity and how to fight it. They learned that the entity was an ancient spirit who had once been human, but had sold his soul for power. Now it roamed the world, inhabiting homes and people, feeding on their fears. Chapter 13 The Final Battle. Anna and Maxim found an ancient ritual that could destroy the entity forever. But to do that, they had to return to the house where it all began. They knew it would be dangerous, but there was no other way out. Back in the house, they began the ritual. The entity appeared at once, fierce and powerful. It attacked them, but Anna and Maxim stood their ground. They cast spells, drew symbols, fought the shadow that tried to consume them. At the last moment, Anna sacrificed herself to complete the ritual. She uttered the last words and fell to the floor, drained of her strength. The entity screamed and disappeared, and the house was filled with light. Epilogue. Maxim was left alone. He buried Anna and left the house that had finally become quiet. But he knew that her sacrifice had not been in vain. The entity had been destroyed and the house was no longer a threat. However, Maxim could never forget what had happened. He continued to write, but now his stories were filled with darkness and horror, and sometimes, in the silence of the night, he thought he heard a whisper calling him back.